And as Remington said, we will be recording the presentation today. The session is going to be talking about Orchid Extender. Before we get started, I thought I'd take a couple of minutes to explain to you a little bit about Orchid Systems, the developer behind the Extender solution. Orchid Systems has been working with Sage 300 solutions for several years. In fact, it's over 20 years now. And these applications are written in what we call the SDK. And these applications are, I'm having some issues here with the PowerPoint, so I'm just going to go ahead and move to this transition mode here. Sometimes that happens in GoToMeeting where you're not actually able to show the slides moving forward. Orchid Systems is a developer of add-on solutions for Sage 300, and they're written in what we call the SDK, or the Software Development Kit for Sage 300. So what you'll see is these applications embed themselves directly into the Sage 300 desktop in the Windows environment, and we're also developing web screens to be compliant with the new Sage 300 Cloud that's able to be hosted on an intranet if you're running that and access through a browser. What's interesting is that we've noticed that customers who buy one Orchid product generally come back and buy multiple products. So the average site right now is running at least 2 Orchid modules at the same time. And you'll see why in a couple of minutes when we talk about the portfolio of Orchid Systems, because it covers a broad area of functionality that a lot of Sage 300 customers are looking for. In fact, Orchid Systems has worked very closely with Sage over the last 20 years, and the Sage 300 RMA module is actually written by Orchid Systems, and the standard EFT or electronic funds transfer product is going to be hosted at Sage 300 Online as the de facto EFT solution for Sage 300. So Orchid has a very close working relationship with Sage, and we've been developing as an OEM partner, as a gold certified development partner for many years. So when we look at the Orchid portfolio, we're talking about a number of different solutions that we've categorized based on business function. So when we think about collaboration and intelligence, Orchid has document management, link, and notes, as well as a BI tool, business intelligence, called Info Explorer. There's automation and productivity that allows you to create schedules that run standard processes in Process Scheduler. So things like running your day end, posting batches, being able to run a data integrity check without having to attend and watch the screens go by, dumping and loading company databases. So a lot of different automation, particularly around administrative processes. And then it also works with something we call Report Runner, where you can actually create a custom menu of standard and customized Crystal or FR financial statement reports and be able to schedule and run those reports at any point in time to specific users within your organization. And what we're focusing on today is Extender, which is part of tailoring your system and integrating it across different applications, either within Sage 300 or outside of Sage 300, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But we also have optional tables, which allows you to create complex data structures for advanced reporting, and data views, which allows you to incorporate optional field header and detail records in a single table, so you don't have to create sub-reports and crystal reports. And then for streamlining financial processes, we have EFT that we've already mentioned, where you can make electronic payments to vendors. You can also do electronic remittances to employees, and also AR receipts. You can do direct debits to pull money from customer accounts. And one of the more popular solutions is the interentity transactions and interentity trade for organizations that either buy and sell between related companies or need to allocate expenses and revenue across multiple companies. And this streamlines that effort, and customers tell us they save about a day or two every month not having to manually reconcile due to and due from transactions. And then finally, for operations management, we have bin tracking for warehouse operations to more specifically identify the exact location for an item within the warehouse, and RMA, which is the module that Sage OEMs that allows you to process returns efficiently and effectively to improve customer service. So that's the portfolio, but as I say, we're going to be focusing on Extender today. So as we move through the application, I'm going to be showing you the Windows release of the product, but the Extender has the ability to run under the web screens as well, and this is an example of the EFT web screen that Orchid is currently finishing development for. So when we talk about Extender, we're talking about an application that addresses the standard need for customers to create what they call a customized environment within Sage 300, but don't want to have to pay an outside developer to write custom screens or custom modules, because that can get quite costly. It adds complexity, and every time you upgrade, you have to upgrade the customization. So with Extender, you're able to more closely tailor the functionality of Sage 300 to your specific organizational requirements without having to have expensive customizations done. It also allows you to automate processes, create email alerts, and also automatically generate notes at a field level so that as you do something in Sage 300, it can be recorded in an audit log table for what was changed or added to the system, but it can also then be populated to a note so the next time someone else comes into the system, they'll see what happened, who changed it, what changed, and what the impact of that change is. So I'm going to show you around a customer credit limit today how that works. Now, to get a little more technical, just for a couple of minutes here to explain how Extender works, there's 3 different editions of Extender. The basic version is what we call Configurator, where we can create alerts via email and we can log changes as well as generating Orchid notes. The next level is what we call Customizer, where we can create automated processes. So for instance, if you were entering an AR invoice or a sales order in order entry, you could enter the customer and we will automatically default things like a ship via code, a salesperson, a tax code. All of these things can be auto-generated so you don't have to visit all of the fields in the screen. It also allows us to create new screens. So if there's information that you would like to add to your transactions within Sage 300, but you don't want to have to pay for a customization to do that, Extender has the ability to create custom screens or add buttons to existing screens so that you're not having to generate separate customized screens in Sage 300. And then the highest level is what we call Developer, where you can actually create your own tables within the Sage 300 database to store any other information that you'd like to keep and report on in conjunction with your standard Sage 300 data. So it works at what we call the view level within Sage 300, and view level just means the business logic layer within Sage 300. And that means that if you want to add functionality or modify the way existing business logic works or automate it, as we've just talked about, then Extender allows you to do all of that. And because it's working within the business logic of Sage 300, that's how we avoid having to do custom screens or custom logic every time you upgrade to a new version of Sage 300. And in fact, a lot of people have come to us in the past and asked us to write macros to automate processes. But the problem with macros is that they're version and service pack specific. So when you upgrade Sage 300, those macros can break and they have to be redone. But when we modify anything using Extender, because it's built within the views or the business logic, it will upgrade just like every other module within Sage 300 upgrades without any modification required. So in that sense, it's going to save you a lot of time and money. So let's dispense with the PowerPoint and move right into the application itself. So as you can see, Extender installs right within the standard Windows tree structure menu. It also supports the visual process flows as part of Sage 300. And it works within the Sage 300 environment and within the Sage 300 database. So by starting off, when we look at the setup options, it can utilize email as a notification alert. And what we use is called SMTP, which just stands for Standard Mail Transfer Protocol. And that's a fancy way of saying that instead of doing the standard Sage 300 one email address at a time, which is what the client email uses, we go right to the server so that if you want to send a number of emails at the same time, you can do that. It also keeps track of updates, so you know whether you're running a current update in Sage 300. And we can also log when people are signing in of Sage 300. Sometimes it's important for you to know when and how often your users are logging into the system. So those are the basic options. Now, when we talk about the features within the first level called Configurator, we have four main features that are part of that initial edition. The first one is logging changes. So if I want to be able to know who changed what, when they changed it, and what the previous value was for that changed item, you can set up a log table within Sage 300 to store all of those changes, and it'll maintain that log as long as you wish. In other cases, you might want something to happen within Sage 300 by running a program automatically when you do something within Sage 300. So let's say that I post a transaction and I want to automatically run an email to send the invoice that I've created to the customer. That's what the run program option can do for you. The next one is send an email. So whenever I do something within Sage 300, let's say I add a new customer, I want an email to be sent to the controller to let him or her know that a new customer has just been added to Sage 300. And finally, there's the Create Note feature, where I can specify different types of notes. So I'm going to show you the one on the credit limit, last change. And that can be based on a specific customer. So when I make a change to the customer credit limit, it will automatically generate a note and update what was changed for that credit limit for that particular customer. So that's the basic level of Extender. The next level introduces what we call scripts and screens. So in the case where I want to manage the customer credit limit, but I also want to limit what a valid entry within the customer credit limit field is, this introduces the concept of a script. And the script allows you to manage field level security within Sage 300. As you might know, the standard security limits you by module and by application, whereas within a particular screen, we could actually control security at the field level. So I'm going to log the change, I'm going to create a note, and I'm also going to limit a valid entry within the customer credit limit field. And that's what scripting can do for you. It's modifying the logic and the behavior of Sage 300 without actually having to customize the application. And then the highest level is what we call custom tables, where I can come into the system and create my own table to store any type of information that I'd like to. So in this case, we're keeping survey information about our customers. And this is stored in Sage 300 so that I can report against the accounting data as well as non-accounting data within my standard Sage 300 reports. So let's go ahead and show you the example of the customer credit limit. So I'm going to run into the AR customer screen here, and you'll see how we can modify or tailor the business logic. Now what you're seeing on the right-hand side here is Document Management Link, which is another application that we mentioned from Orchid Systems. This also works closely with our Notes feature. So you'll see as I start to look at different customers, I have information that might store documents, but I also have notes about this customer. And as you can see, it's talking about customer 1100, Bargain Mart San Diego, and it mentions that the customer's credit limit has changed from 14,000 to 18,000, and the change was done by the administrative user, which is who I am, by updating the customer's record, and the change was done on April the 18th at 10:51 in the morning. And if we were to move through and look at other customers, we might see other changes. You can see this one changed from 15 to 19 on October the 16th, 2017, and so on. So these are all being recorded as notes against the customer within Sage 300. So let's say I want to change the customer credit limit here for Mr. Ronald Black, and you can see the limit changed from 17 to 12, and that is the current value within the customer credit limit field. But let's say Ronald Black has been a good customer now for several years, and he calls up complaining that he would like a higher level of credit with your organization. So the customer, the AR clerk, says, well, that's fine. How about we double it to $24,000? Would that make you happy, Mr. Black? And he says, sure. Can you just go ahead and make that change for me right now? And the clerk goes in and says, sure, I'll do that for you. And they try to enter $24,000 and tab through the field. But all of a sudden an error message pops up to say your maximum credit limit that you're allowed to enter is $20,000. And so sheepishly you would have to tell Mr. Black, well, I'm sorry, I can't authorize anything higher than $20,000. Will that be acceptable? And Mr. Black begrudgingly says, all right, that's fine. So we go ahead and enter $20,000 in that field and save it. And now we've recorded a change to the customer credit limit, and an email would have been sent to the controller saying that the customer's credit limit for Mr. Ronald Black has just increased from $12,000 to $20,000. But I'm not linked into an email server on this machine, so that's why I got that message. But if I refresh the screen for Mr. Ronald Black, you will see that the note has now been updated to say that the credit limit has changed from $12,000 to $20,000, done by me, the admin user, and that change was made on May the 3rd at 1:17 Eastern Time. So the note has been automatically recorded to show that while the customer's credit limit is now $20,000, it was previously $12,000 until we made the change on May the 3rd. Now I also logged this change, so if I go to the inquiry screen and I look at the log, I can go into that view or just open up and it'll show me some of the last changes. And I can see that as of today's date at 1:17, the admin user changed the customer 1200 credit limit from 12,000 to 20,000. And if I wanted to, I could go back and start looking at other historical changes that have been made to credit limits or other changes within the system. And as you can see, in the case of customer 1200, if I wanted to view just that key for customer 1200, then it would show me all of the customer credit limit changes for that customer over the last year or so. And so you'll see there's a history of the change going from 19.5 to 17, 17 to 20, and then 20 down to 17, 17 to 20, and then 12 to 20. So it's showing you the entire history of all of these changes locked into the system through the audit log system. And so that's just a very basic example of how you can make changes within the system, but log those changes, or also generate a separate report of that log. So again, I could come in here and say, I just want to see the changes for customer 1200 and go ahead and print that report. And I could set up the sort order for how I want that report to appear. And there's the same information that we saw on the inquiry screen, but now it's listed as a report. So that's one way that we can demonstrate the use of Extender by adding field level security, logging changes, and sending the email, even though I didn't actually show the email because I'm not running an email server. But the message templates that we give you here allow you to specify the language that goes into the body of that email, and it will pick up, based on the variables, the customer name and number, and the fact that the credit limit has changed from the original amount to the current amount in the field, and the user's name and the date and time with the hour, minute, and second. So the message that you saw in the note would be identical to what we sent via email to the controller so she could verify what had happened with the customer's credit limit. Now, these scripts that are stored, you can have a whole number of different scripts to automate different aspects of Sage 300. So we showed you the limit of customers' credit limit, but you see we can also automatically complete orders within order entry. We can automatically show an AR aging and auto-fill OE invoice information and automatically print the invoice as a PDF and email it to the customer using the AR customer delivery method. So a lot of times you want to automate the process so you don't have to key that information or go in and manually generate invoices and then have to set it up and attach it to an email and send the email. We can automate the entire process using a script in Extender so that as soon as you enter the invoice and post, it takes over and automatically creates the PDF, assigns it the email, sends it out, and you've done all of that work just by simply creating the AR invoice. So it can be a huge time saver in terms of automating your processes. Now let's take a look at another example of how we can combine Notes and Extender to create what we call conditional notes. So within order entry, if we're looking at a transaction, you'll see again on the right-hand side as I open up the OE entry screen, there'll be lots of different information that can be stored against the customer, the order, the invoice, and the rest of the information that you might like to store against a customer transaction. So again, I've got information about customer number, reference details. As I start looking at the various orders within the system, that information gets updated. So this is an order to our friend Mr. Ronald Black, and it's automatically going out and telling us what his total sales are. It's also giving us the update on his credit limit that we just modified. And there are files here that are looking at all of the invoices for customer 1200. And I can simply go in and double click and open up one of those invoices to see the attachment for that particular invoice tied to that customer. So that's working with Document Management Link and the standard OE sales order entry screen. But if I want to take a look at other customer details, and I would like to show some additional information here, I've got the ability here to print and email the invoice, and there's a separate report. So not only am I able to show information about the customer, but I also have the ability to automatically attach information as an invoice and email that invoice with the report, let's say the customer aging report or a customer statement. And that can be done right from within the OE screen without having to navigate through the print and report function within Sage 300. So again, another example of utilizing an Extender script to make it much easier to navigate through Sage 300 and incorporate additional functionality to streamline a process for you. So just by clicking on the email button or the print button, I can generate an invoice or automatically email it out to the customer, and it will look at the customer information for the correct email address to use. Now, if we look at some additional information, now let's pick another order here. As we're looking at this information within Sage 300, that information is being updated automatically for us. Now, if I want to look at another example, let's say we want to look at, instead of from order entry, we want to look at accounts receivable, and we want to look at, or sorry, let's go to the vendors. We go to AP vendors, and we want to call up a vendor. Again, we have information for the different vendors. We've stored some documents against different vendors, and there's the vendor information invoice details, and that's accessible within the system. Notice here that there's a little flag here when there are notes against a particular vendor record. That's what that little button will show. And when there's an ability to send an email, one of the other things that we incorporate with Extender is the ability to provide email access. So right within the system, we're able to take a snapshot of a window and send an email through Exchange or Outlook. And if we're storing documents, we don't have to just store them on the hard drive, but we can also store them in Google Docs or OneDrive within Sage 300. But the combination of Extender with the email function allows us to send a screenshot as an email, and it will embed a hot link in the body of the email so that you can tell someone you'd like them to take a look at a particular item within Sage 300, and you can send that as a link in an email. And when they open up the email, it'll link them to the screen and take them right to the Sage 300 screen that you're referring to. So that's a way that we can facilitate collaboration within Sage 300 by incorporating that as another feature. So as you can see, Extender is one of those modules that can be hard to understand because it's really not a separate financial accounting module. It's really a tool set of different features that allow you to automate and streamline processes within Sage 300, to add your own custom functionality, and to facilitate the work that you're doing either through collaboration or automation, and being able to email invoices or documents to customers automatically. So it will save you a lot of time and effort, and it also enforces company policies and procedures by you being able to build those into the logic of Sage 300 specific to the way your organization works. And so we hope that you've got a better understanding of how a solution like Extender can help you streamline and improve your processing and your productivity within Sage 300. If you do have any questions, we can take those now. And if not, we're happy to do any follow-up discussions with you to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the benefits of Orchid Extender. So I don't see any questions coming in, so that will be the end of our formal presentation. We thank you for your time and attention today. We appreciate it very much. If you do have any further questions later on, or you'd like a follow-up presentation, we're more than happy to do that for you. Thanks very much, and have a great day.
Perfect, and thank you for presenting today as well, Robert.
You're very welcome.